We don't always notice the exact second a life breaks in half. This one had a timestamp, a subject line, and the quiet kind of cruelty that fits neatly inside a laptop screen. Rachel Donovan wasn't reckless or dramatic. She was a woman of audits and balances, the kind of person who stayed late at her Scottsdale investment firm so the work didn't fall on someone else. And what happened to her matters because it wasn't just a man leaving. It was a father deciding his daughter was the easier loss. What followed came out the way she remembers it. I was at my dining table, still in my work clothes, staring at a regulatory report that had stopped making sense an hour ago. My eyes felt gritty, like I'd been rubbing sand into them. Tyler had texted earlier, crashing at the co-working space tonight. Big meeting in the morning. Love you. I'd answered with a heart. Normal. Safe. His laptop sat on my coffee table. He'd left it there after dinner, but the screen kept waking up. Because we shared a home office setup, our devices were often confused by the same Wi-Fi. A notification banner popped up at the top of his screen, a synced preview from his mail client. Sender Patrick Donovan. Subject finalizing the transition. I wasn't a snoop. I lived by a code of professional and personal privacy. But the word transition felt like a cold finger down my spine. I didn't open it out of curiosity. I opened it because my brain was already performing a risk assessment my heart couldn't ignore. I tapped the trackpad. The email expanded. Tyler. It read, "The wire cleared this afternoon. 30,000? As agreed. The rest of the loan settlement and the equity pathway has been handled as discussed." I read it twice before my lungs remembered how to work. $30,000 in cash. $120,000 in student debt wiped clean. A career paved with Maureen's connections. Total value a small fortune. My father's tone was clinical. I know this isn't comfortable, but Brianna's future requires stability. Rachel is self-sufficient. She's low maintenance. She will recover. She always does. My hand went cold around the edge of the table. To my father, I wasn't a daughter. I was a write-off. An asset moved to settle a liability. You'll end the engagement cleanly. The email continued. No blame. No details. I don't want Rachel pulled into anything messy. This is the best outcome for everyone. Beneath it was Tyler's reply. Sent hours ago. Gratitude. Relief. A promise to do it the right way. I stared until the letters blurred. My chest felt tight, like someone was wrapping industrial tape around my ribs. My phone buzzed. A new text from Tyler. Dinner tomorrow. I miss you. The hypocrisy was the sharpest blade. I reached for my phone and called him. Silence would have killed me faster than the truth. He picked up on the second ring. His voice, cheerful. Hey, babe. You okay? I looked at the screen. Finalizing the transition. My throat finally worked, though my voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Tyler, where exactly are you right now? Tyler went quiet on the line, the kind of pause that tells you someone is choosing words instead of telling the truth. I'm at the space. He finally answered. Why I kept my eyes on the email. My dad's name sat there like it belonged. You left your laptop here. Another pause. Shorter this time. Tighter. Okay. That email from my father. I went on. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I saw it. He exhaled, not sharply, almost relieved. Rachel. Don't. I cut in. The word came out before I could soften it. Just don't. Silence again. I could hear him shifting, maybe standing up, maybe pacing. He always paced when he thought he was about to lose control of a situation. I was going to tell you, he said. I just needed time. Time for what? For things to settle. I laughed once. It surprised both of us. You mean for me to be easier about it? That's not fair. It is. I said, quieter now. It's exactly fair. He started talking fast after that. How my dad had reached out. How it was supposed to be about helping everyone land on their feet. How it wasn't about money. Not really. Opportunities. Connections. Student loans disappearing overnight like they'd never existed. Brianna needs stability, he added, almost by reflex. I closed my eyes. I'd heard that phrase my whole life. At holidays, at family dinners, whenever something tilted in her direction and I was expected to lean with it. She's younger, my stepmother used to say, passing Brianna the better gift. You understand, my dad liked to call me low maintenance, capable, independent. Once, after my mother died, he'd put a hand on my shoulder and told me I was strong enough to handle more than most people. This was the math they always did. Brianna plus protection. Me plus resilience. Tyler kept going. Softer now. Your dad said you'd be okay. He said you always bounce back. I opened my eyes and looked at the apartment. The half-packed boxes in the corner. The invitations on the counter with both our names printed neatly across the front. Are you with her already? I asked. No. God. No. Not yet. Not yet. Like it was scheduled. I need you to listen. I told him. I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to show up anywhere. I just need to understand one thing. Okay. When you read that email, when you saw what he was offering, did you think of me at all? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice had dropped. I thought you'd be fine. That was it. The final calculation. Tomorrow, I said, feeling strangely calm. We'll meet. We'll end this cleanly. Rachel, I'll text you the place. I hung up before he could reach for another explanation and sat there for a long minute, letting the quiet settle. Somewhere across town, my father was probably asleep, confident he'd handled things. He always believed the numbers worked out in the end. I didn't sleep. I lay on top of the covers with my phone on my chest, watching the screen light up and go dark again as messages came in and went unanswered. Tyler texted first. Can we talk tonight instead? I typed back, then erased it. Typed again. Tomorrow is fine. Noon, 3 dots appeared, disappeared. A few minutes later, my father called. I let it ring until it stopped, then rang again. On the third try, I answered. Rachel. He started, already in problem-solving mode. I heard there's some confusion. There isn't. A pause. He didn't like that. I think you're reacting emotionally. I think you planned this carefully. That's not fair. I sat up and swung my feet onto the floor, cold tile against my skin. You wired him money. It wasn't just money. It was support. A bridge. For him, I said, not for me. He sighed, slow and controlled. You've always been practical. You'll see this was the least damaging option. There it was. The script. The version of me they all counted on. I'm not coming to dinner this weekend. I told him. Another pause. Longer this time. That's unnecessary. It's necessary for me. He started to say my name again. Softer now. Like he was reaching for the version of me that apologized without being asked. I ended the call before he could find her. By morning, my stepmother had left a voicemail. Calm, polite, let's all take a breath. Families get through worse than this. Brianna didn't call. That felt louder than anything else. I showered, dressed, made coffee I didn't drink. I opened my laptop and stared at my calendar. Vendor calls, venue deposit reminders, a fitting scheduled for next Thursday. I canceled everything. One line at a time. Around 10. Tyler texted again. I really appreciate how understanding you're being. I looked at the message for a long moment before replying. Understanding isn't the same as agreeing. I put my phone face down and sat there, hands folded in my lap, feeling the strange calm that comes right before you step out of a life everyone else thinks you're still inside. The restaurant was quieter than usual for a Friday. Too early for dinner, too late for lunch. Tyler chose it because he always liked places where nothing lingered. He stood when I walked in, smiling like this was still normal, like we were just another couple meeting between work days. You look tired, he said, pulling out a chair. I didn't sleep. I answered, sitting anyway. He nodded, as if that fit the version of events he'd rehearsed. A server came by. Water glasses. Menus we didn't open. Tyler folded his hands on the table. He cleared his throat. "I've been thinking a lot. I know." That threw him. Just a flicker. "I care about you," he continued. "This isn't easy. It doesn't have to be hard," I said. My voice stayed even. I'd practiced that part without realizing it. He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I think we've been moving toward different lives for a while." I went on. Different priorities, different timelines. Relief crossed his face before he could stop it. "I was afraid you'd be angry." "I'm not," I said. That part surprised me too. "I just want us both to land where we belong." He reached for my hand. I let him touch my fingers for a second, then gently pulled back. "You should be with someone your future aligns with," I added. He nodded slowly, like the words made sense when he heard them out loud. "You're being really understanding about this." Understanding. The word sat between us like something fragile. "I think this is best," I said. "For both of us." He exhaled, long and heavy, the sound of a man being let off the hook. "I never wanted to hurt you." I reached into my bag and took out the ring. It felt lighter than it should have. 4 years reduced to something small and cold in my palm. I set it on the table, between the water glasses. "Keep it," I told him. "Do whatever you want with it." His mouth opened, then closed. "Rachel, you don't have to." "I do." We sat there for a moment, the quiet stretching. Finally, he stood and leaned in. Awkward, unsure. "I'll always care about you," he said. I nodded. That felt true, in a distant way. He walked out without looking back. I stayed until the server came to clear the untouched glasses. Outside, the sun was too bright. I got into my car, closed the door, and sat there with my hands on the steering wheel. The tears didn't come right away. They waited until I was home, until the door was locked and the silence had weight. When they did, they came all at once, not loud, not dramatic, just deep, shaking sobs for the life I'd been living without realizing it wasn't mine anymore. By Monday morning, my apartment looked the same, but it felt like I'd already moved out. I walked from room to room, making calls I'd never planned to make in this order. The property manager answered on the second ring. When I explained I needed to terminate the lease early, she paused. "There's a steep penalty for that. Rachel, check the corporate relocation clause," I said, my voice steady. "I'm moving to Toronto. My mother was a Canadian citizen, so my dual status is already on file. I'll have the transfer papers to you by EOD. "Oh," she softened. "In that case, we'll waive the final month. Send the offer letter when you have it." I thanked her and hung up. The dual citizenship I'd barely thought about for years was suddenly my greatest asset. The lawyer came next. He listened as I explained the $210,000 transition my father had engineered. "You're doing the right thing by documenting the wire transfers," he said. "If Tyler tries to claim any shared assets, this email evidence of a private payoff makes him look like a liability in court. We'll keep the split boring. Boring is safe." Around noon, my father called. "Rachel," he said, in his usual problem-solving tone. "This is all happening very fast. I think you're being impulsive. I think I'm being practical." I countered. "You always told me to look at the bottom line." "The bottom line here is that Scottsdale has no ROI for me anymore." He scoffed. "You just ended an engagement. Now you're talking about leaving the country. What about family?" The word hung there, heavy and hollow. "I'll call when I'm settled," I told him. "This isn't how we handle things." "Rachel, I know," I said. "That's exactly the point." I ended the call and reached out to a recruiter in Toronto I'd declined months ago. She was ecstatic. "The fintech firm is still desperate for a director of compliance with your background. Since you don't need a sponsored visa, they can have you onboarding by next Monday." I packed one box. Files, notebooks, The mother's passport I'd kept in a fireproof safe. When I set it by the door, it didn't feel dramatic. It felt like an audit clean, precise, and finally balanced. Toronto felt unfamiliar in a way that kept me alert. Different street sounds, different pace. I rented a small apartment near the office. Nothing charming, nothing temporary either. Just clean, quiet, mine. My first week blurred together. Long days, short lunches, too much coffee. On Wednesday, my new manager stopped by my desk with a folder tucked under his arm. "Rachel, do you have a minute?" I followed him into a glass conference room that still smelled like fresh paint. He slid the folder across the table. "This is the audit timeline," he said. "It's a mess." I flipped through it, already seeing the gaps. "Who signed off on this?" He gave a tight smile. "That's why I wanted you on it." I nodded. "Okay." No welcome speeches. No easing in. That suited me. The work was relentless. Regulatory filings, risk assessments, meetings where people talked around problems instead of naming them. I named them, calmly, with receipts. One afternoon, a senior analyst leaned back in his chair and frowned at a spreadsheet on the screen. "That exposure's theoretical," he said. "We've never had an issue." I pointed to the notes column. "You've never looked for one." The room went quiet. Then someone cleared their throat and started taking notes. At night, I came home exhausted in a way that felt earned. I cooked simple meals, pasta, soup, things that didn't require decisions. I slept better than I had in years. A few months in, my phone buzzed during a late meeting, my stepmother's name. I ignored it. Later, my father followed. I let that one go too. At work, the pressure increased. So did the trust. During a review, my manager leaned back and clasped his hands. "You're thorough," he said. "You don't flinch." I flinch, I answered. "I just don't stop." He smiled at that. By the end of the first year, I was leading meetings instead of attending them. My title changed quietly. No announcement. Just a new line in my email signature. One night, a colleague named Mark lingered by the elevator. "Drinks," he offered. "A few of us are heading out." I shook my head. "Another time." He nodded, unoffended. "You work like you're out running something." I watched the elevator doors close. I'm not. That was the truth. I wasn't running. I was building. On a rainy Thursday, I met Calvin at a conference. We shared a table because the room was full. Bad coffee. A mutual dislike of buzzwords. "This panel's painful," he said under his breath. I laughed before I could stop myself. We talked between sessions, work, travel, nothing personal at first. When my phone buzzed again that night, my father's name lighting up the screen. Calvin glanced over. "Everything okay?" I turned the phone face down. "It will be..." He didn't push. That mattered. Weeks passed, then months. The calls slowed. The silence settled. In meeting rooms and quiet evenings, I started to understand something I hadn't before. I wasn't missing an audience. I was finally working without one. The hotel ballroom smelled like flowers and warm plates. Too many people. Too much light. I stood just inside the doors with Calvin beside me, his hand light at my back, not pushing, just there. "You want water or wine?" he murmured. "Water," I said. For now. Across the room, I saw them almost immediately. My father near the bar, shoulders stiff, scanning faces. Maureen beside him, perfectly composed, one hand resting on his arm like she belonged there more than anyone. Brianna laughing with a group of friends, hair smooth, dress flawless. Tyler stood a step behind her, nodding along, glass already half empty. Calvin followed my line of sight without comment. That helped. My father noticed me when someone else did. A sharp inhale. His mouth opened, then closed again. He started toward me, slowed, then stopped. Maureen leaned in and whispered something. Whatever it was, it made him straighten. Rachel, he said a moment later, approaching like this was a meeting he hadn't prepared for. You're here. I said I would be. His eyes flicked to Calvin. And this must be... Calvin. Calvin offered, extending a hand. Nice to meet you. They shook, polite, measured. My father's grip lingered a second too long, like he was trying to read something through it. Brianna joined us then, bright smile already in place. Oh my God, Rachel, you look great. Thanks. She hugged me lightly, careful not to wrinkle anything. Tyler hovered, then stepped forward. Hey, he said. His voice was quieter than I remembered. It's good to see you. Hi. Tyler. He nodded and stepped back beside Brianna, close enough to touch, not quite touching. A server passed with a tray. Calvin handed me a glass of water without asking again. I took a sip, grateful. At our table, conversation moved in cautious circles. Work, travel, the weather. Someone asked Calvin what he did. Risk advisory. He answered, mostly fintech. My father perked up. And you, Rachel, I'm with the same firm. I said, different role. Maureen tilted her head. Still numbers. Then, still. I agreed. The band started playing. People stood. Chairs scraped. The room shifted. My father leaned closer. Voice low. You didn't mention you were moving up. I didn't mention a lot of things. He studied me, like he was recalculating. You seem settled. I am. Across the table. Tyler avoided my eyes. Brianna kept her smile fixed, but her knee bounced under the table. Fast and constant. Calvin leaned in, barely audible. Want to step outside. In a minute. The bride and groom took the floor. Applause filled the room. I clapped with everyone else, feeling oddly removed, like I was watching through glass. My father cleared his throat. We should talk later. I met his gaze. We can... He nodded, satisfied with that for now. When the music swelled and people stood again, Calvin squeezed my hand once. Steady. From across the room, Maureen watched us. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I'd been gone for years, long enough for the room to rearrange itself without me. Walking back into it felt different than I expected. Not painful, not triumphant, just clear. We stepped out onto the terrace while the band played inside. The air was cooler here, carrying the faint smell of citrus from the centerpieces. My father stood near the railing, hands clasped behind his back like he was waiting for a board meeting to start. He didn't turn right away. You've done well for yourself. That firm in Toronto, I looked into the acquisition. Your equity stake must be significant. I've done my job. Dad. He faced me then. Up close, he looked older, worn. I never wanted to hurt you. Rachel, you have to understand why I made those choices. I leaned against the stone balustrade, maintaining a professional distance. You didn't make a choice. You made a calculation. And as someone who manages risk for a living, I find your math offensive. His jaw tightened. That's unfair. It's accurate. I said, my voice low and clinical. I saw the full ledger. You wired $30,000 for the inconvenience. You used Maureen's leverage to settle $120,000 in student debt. You threw in a career pathway to keep him quiet. You priced my exit at roughly $210,000. He flinched as I cited the numbers. He wasn't expecting an audit. You decided Brianna needed protection and I didn't. I continued. You decided I would absorb the impact because I was low maintenance. You treated your eldest daughter like a depreciating asset you could write off to save a preferred investment. You've always been strong, he whispered, a weak defense. I was forced to be. Tyler wasn't right for me. We agree on that. But you didn't save me from him. You bought him off me. The music inside shifted to a slower song. The silence between us was heavy with the weight of things that couldn't be unsaid. I'm sorry, he said finally. I truly am. Perhaps now we can move forward. I shook my head. That part already happened. Just not with you. I'm not here to punish you. Dad, I'm here to tell you that your calculation was wrong. You thought you were buying my silence and Brianna's happiness. Instead, you bought a broken marriage for her and an empty chair at your table. I straightened my dress, feeling a strange, cold clarity. I built a life without your approval. Please don't try to provide it now. It has no value in my world. I stepped past him toward the light of the ballroom, leaving him alone with the numbers that no longer added up. We left early, no dramatic exits, just quiet nods. In the car, I kicked off my heels, my feet sore in a way that felt grounding. You okay? Calvin asked. I am, I said. And for the first time in 4 years, it was a data-backed fact. At the airport the next morning, my phone buzzed. A message from my father. I want to make this right. Let me help. Attached was a photo of a check. The amount was identical to the price he'd paid Tyler to leave $210,000. He was trying to buy back the moral high ground. I locked the screen and watched the Toronto skyline disappear beneath the clouds. A week later, a thick envelope arrived via certified mail. Inside was the physical check and a note filled with apologies. I didn't feel anger. I felt the strange, cool clarity of a finalized audit. After dinner, I opened my laptop. I didn't search for vacation spots or luxury goods. Instead, I found the Foundation for Women in Finance, a scholarship program for first-generation students. I filled out the donation form, typed in the exact amount from the check, and hit submit. Calvin watched from the doorway. You sure that money was meant to make me disappear? I said, closing the laptop. Now it's going to help other women take up space. He wrapped his arms around me. Proud of you. Later. My phone buzzed. Did you get it? My father texted. I did. I replied. I didn't tell him I'd already cleared the balance. I didn't need his apology to be sincere. I only needed his debt to me to be settled. The next morning, the Toronto streets were damp with rain. I breathed in the cold air and kept walking. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and that was an asset he could never afford to buy back.